For some people, you don't just get the kid in the uniform, let's see him on the field. The rest of it, not relevant to you. And I'm good with that too. But if you like the race for the recruiting title, all that, A&M's 92.8 average, well above what's needed for a top 10 class, and already better than the fourth and fifth current ranked classes by average. Clemson, the Tigers, Dabo Sweeney, there's a rock, people rub it. Clemson, they had a scary weekend. They signed 2 5-star kids. On Friday, Clemson got 5-star running back DeMarcus Bowman, and it was like a shocker. Florida, University of Gators Chomping, they thought completely that was their kid. And this is something that shocked me, a factoid. The University of Florida has not had a 5-star kid in a class since 2015. And the University of Florida should have 5-star kids every year and multiples every year because their University of Florida in Florida hasn't been so. All the recruiting experts had Bowman going to Florida. Nope. He picked Clemson on Friday, 5-star running back. Then, because why rest? On Sunday, 5-star quarterback DJ, last name I can't pronounce, committed to Clemson too. So on Friday, it's a 5-star running back. On Sunday, it's a 5-star quarterback. Currently, Clemson has the number 1, 6, 16, 23, and 42 player in the class of 2020. Currently, Clemson has 5 5-star kids. I want you to think about that. 247
Good afternoon, Bryan College Station. Welcome to the Beliucci Hour lunch, the final Beliucci Hour lunch of the spring semester here at the Tap on Harvey Road. So if you want to come hang out with us until 1 o'clock for the last time, at least with us on stage, Liucci and I, you can probably catch the front table guys in here on Mondays and Thursdays throughout the summer. I don't advise you coming in here without me and Liucci in here just to hang out with them. But if you would like to come hang out, the Tap's great lunch specials, $8.49 burger basket, $8.49 chicken tenders. Comes with fries and they drink. Don't forget, Monday nights tonight, karaoke on the stage, and Wednesday nights, piano bar. I give the front table a hard time, but really thankful for you guys for being here every week, helping support the show. Shout out to Captain Ron Leck, right, in France, Ron Luke, who's listening from France. I hope he took out it kind of sets the standards for some of these guys at the front table that he's in France. He wants to listen to the Beliucci Hour. But Ron, enjoy your trip, man. Don't spend too much time around the phone or the radio, and come back safe. And we'll see him back here this fall. We do have some things to get to now after an eventful weekend in College Station and around Aggie sports today. So this final show, we're going to do some spring recap. Kind of the highlights of the spring, more specifically spring football. We'll get Liucci's take on that. Texas A&M picked up its first football commitment in quite a while over the weekend when defensive end Fadil Diggs out of Camden, New Jersey, announced via Twitter and Instagram that he was going to be continuing his college football career and education at Texas A&M, one of the premier defensive players on the entire East Coast. Picked A&M over Ohio State and Penn State. We'll get into that more. We'll get Liucci's thoughts on the AD search, maybe the timetable, because we won't be back here again until the fall. And I want to get into some recruiting questions, as tomorrow I will hit the road in earnest on my spring tour. And Jason Howell, who is my coworker, was already on a spring tour. So there's a lot of summer recruiting things about to happen. So want to get to that as well. And then over the course of the weekend, A&M drops 2 of 3 to Mississippi State at home in baseball. All pretty close games, but again, you come up on the wrong side of that, and now I think it's pretty unless they rattle off 6 wins in a row here, and even still I think they would need a little bit of help based on what's happening in the conference to host a regional. So it looks like baseball will be hitting the road for the postseason for the 3rd season in a row. Luch, what's up, man? How was your weekend?
It was good. How about you?
Good. My baseball kids, yeah, and they played exceptionally hard yesterday.
Good.
It's so much fun.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Winning and losing doesn't matter.
I talked to you yesterday on the phone. It's so much fun. At 12 years old, to see them start caring about the game and, getting emotional about stuff that happens. So I had a lot of fun. I like coaching. I like winning, obviously, but when it's close and your kids have got to pour into the game and show some emotion and some competitive spirit, that's what I love about coaching. So I had a great weekend there. What'd you think of Fadil Diggs? Something we expected but for him to finally announce publicly that he's committed to A&M.
No, yeah, it's expected, but when you got Ohio State and Penn State and schools closer to that region pushing and trying to get them to put off a decision or pick them, and it's one thing to have a guy leaning to you. It's a different thing to have him announce a public commitment and be extremely fired up about it. And that was a big get for the Aggies. It's been maybe the longest stretch I can remember between commitments since I've been covering A&M football, from Super Bowl days following the Super Bowl until now. But Jimbo alluded to it in our interview, and he mentioned it again at the Houston Touchdown Club a couple weeks later, that there are some guys out there that they feel really good about, and almost kind of alluded to the silent commit thing, and that they're going to do it on their timetable, but you kind of got the feeling that they'd had assurances that those guys were coming to A&M. So it's never official till they do it, and even then it's not official till they sign. But I like guys that do it like Diggs, that have been leaning your way for a while. They put a ton of thought into it. Went through the process, didn't just knee-jerk on their first visit here or an official. Took the time, thought it out. Okay, I'm ready to make my decision and make it. I think he's going to be one of the centerpieces of the class. He's also, I think his name is only going to get bigger and bigger.
If he's in state, he's probably the one of, if not the best defensive end in the state.
I think
he's right
he
up
is
there
the
with
best.
Alfred Collins and.
Watch the tape and tell me he's not the best.
Well, and I think can you compare him to anybody that A&M's taken recently? I think he's kind of in that mold. They were recruiting David Agwegbu last year, who went to OU. I think he's kind of in that mold. Same frame, really athletic. He's got plays on his highlights where he's
Is he a
catching
little
balls.
bigger than Agwegbu was at this time?
They're pretty similar, man.
How much you think Diggs weighs right now?
240,
I don't
243.
think Agwegbu was that big. There was a point in time where he was like 215.
Yeah.
Or think about where
When I went and
early
saw him
in the
last
process.
year, when I saw him last year, it was his senior year. I
Yeah.
thought he was probably about two. That's why that was my most apt comparison for me
Yeah.
as guys I've seen. But
I'll say this. I this morning said I think he's a much better prospect at this exact point in time, in my opinion, than Tyree Johnson was. And Tyree Johnson's going to end up, he's got a good chance to be like a 3-year starter at A&M.
Yeah.
Made some noise late in the season against SEC opposition in his
Had a
first
great
year of
bowl game,
football.
yeah.
So that's not a knock on Tyree. My point is I think Tyree Johnson's going to be a good player at A&M, and I like Diggs a lot better at the same age.
well, and he's got his good buddy Isaiah Rakes up there, who's getting really close. And so let's fast forward to our next show, our next Beliucci Hour lunch. Between now and then, we could see half of this class full, you think? The summer could be an extremely busy period for recruiting.
Yeah, it should be. The hope is that it will be.
Mm-hmm.
I think A&M would like to go into the home stretch with a little more wiggle room than they had a year ago, but not by a little. I think the Aggies would have loved to have had a couple more scholarships with which to work in that second stretch to signing day. So I'm not talking about wanting out of I'm going to just spitball here and say 23-person class. If you had like 23, I think they'd love to have like 4 to work with the next time around, as opposed to 1. So let's say you're working with working at 20, and you've got about 5 probably that you feel great about keeping in the boat. So there's about 15 to work with. Do I think they can fill half of those spots between now and during the summer? Yeah. I think they could go into the fall with about 7, 8, 9 spots left, and then wanting to fill maybe half of those by the early signing period.
What's the biggest question position-wise that you have in terms of recruiting about where it's going to go right now?
Which one is my biggest concern?
Not concern, but which one are you more curious about the outcome, because the prospects are just kind of all over the place?
No, it could be concern or curiosity. I'll do both. I think curious to me would be the secondary. And there's so many pieces. They've only got one commit, they've got one commit there. They had 2 at one point and were worried about getting the third one too quickly. And somebody like a Jalen Kimber, who's now committed to Georgia, they kind of tapped the brakes on Kimber at Georgia, Miles Slusher, who went to Oregon, and obviously R.J. Mickens, who's at Clemson. So they're being very particular, very specific in the secondary. Ryan Watts went to OU. That was one they certainly were pushing on, and won't stop recruiting.
You're going to get an official visit from him.
Yeah, they're going to keep pushing him, and he loved A&M. It just kind of, OU did a good job of closing him out. But there's a lot of national guys that you've talked to a lot, particularly, Vito Tisdale, likely to visit.
Antonio Johnson.
He's been a guy that's been, I think, that A&M's probably felt pretty decent about for a while. They've got to get him down here. He had an unfortunate family thing happen. Their house caught on fire
the week before he was supposed to visit.
So Antonio Johnson's a guy. There's plenty around the country that they're going to get in and stuff. And then there's plenty. There's still some. Let's say plenty. There's still some in state.
Yeah.
Xavier on offer. They could go back in. Re-engage. It feels like there might be some mutual interest again with Chris Thompson, There's Josh Eaton.
And Marco Damio.
And Damio, I think, is a guy that they really would love to get. And there's a couple other JUCOs out there, but Damio being at Blinn, being that he's close, and I think he's as good as any of the guys they're recruiting, it'd be great to see them get him. There's a lot of options, but that's the curious position because there's so many different ways it goes, but I'm confident that they're going to have – these people are like, it's so hard for us to get DBs, and they're like wringing their hands, but they don't understand – A&M.
How's it? I mean, A&M just signed a
they
fantastic
just signed a
deal.
terrific class. Terrific. And then they're pulling away on some of these guys that you guys and I'm not saying me personally, I think Jalen Kimber can play. But it's like to wring your hands over something, they're not missing on the guys they want. Burns and Watts would be two, certainly. You can tell they want that big cover man. But it's not like, oh, my God. Like, if you got Damio, if you got Marco Damio, Jalen Jones, Josh Eaton, and Antonio Johnson, and I think they could go 5. But even if you got those 4.
Throw in Xavier Alford.
Well, and so you throw in whoever. Yeah, but I'm saying
5,
even if you got those 4 to go with the 4 you signed last year, all of a sudden you've completely reshaped and reloaded your secondary in an SEC West caliber way of depth and talent and playmakers with those 2 classes. So nothing I just said about that class is a stretch. And, in fact, I'd say the same thing if you said they were going to get – if they had gotten Jalen Jones, Damio, Jalen Kimber, and Miles Slusher. Yeah. Those 4 plus, and they could have done it like that. So I think they feel very confident that they're going to get the kind of DB haul. My bigger concern position, I might surprise you with this one.
Curiosity was linebacker. That was my curious one.
Mine's still a concern there, but it's my number 2. Because anytime that you're going to go exclusive, probably – out of state.
Not even just out of state. It's almost national. Like it's not Louisiana or Arkansas.
We're thinking of there's a guy in Seattle. There's a guy in Southern California.
Utah.
Alabama. St. Louis. Yeah. So there's a lot. And don't think there's not going to be several that pop up throughout Florida, the Deep South as this thing goes on. So. Yeah, to me there's a little concern there, but I'm confident they'll find. They did it last year. They found, I think, 4 really good ones out of state. I think they'll do that again. Now, if you want to talk about my concern, it might surprise you because I think I might say offensive line.
I could see that, but they are I believe they're close on Chris Morris. Who is a fantastic product.
Who's a Memphis prospect that's going to get a lot of recruiting attention going on there.
And we know what kind of game Tennessee's playing right now.
Yeah.
But A&M's done a great job there.
Yep.
I think if they can land Garrett Hayes in state, that's a big piece to
It'd be a monster piece. Those 2, I'm no longer worried about the position. Sure. But you don't have them.
No.
By any stretch.
Got work to do.
Neither one of them.
You can feel good about it, but it ain't done.
I would say I feel good when it is done. So that, if that doesn't happen, then where does it go? So I'll tell you what I would love. I like the Anderson kid out of Frisco. I really do. And who did he pick up? Somebody good.
Florida?
Maybe so. Florida State.
I'll have to go.
Whatever. I like him. I would love to see him. Like whatever they've got out of their guys committed. Him, Hayes, and Morris, I'd feel really good about that class.
Nate Anderson's the kind of kid that Josh Henson would get at Oklahoma State.
Yes.
And then in 4 years, he looks like Russell Okung.
Yep.
A big premier left tackle kind of kid. On the other side of the break, still a lot to get to. Team news, AD search. We're going to look ahead to the summer, some of the big events. A lot more to get to. Beliucci Hour Lunch, final show of the year. We'll be right back on the other side of the break. You're listening live on The Zone. Welcome back to the Tap on Harvey Road. Ryan Brauninger, Beliucci with you. Beliucci Hour lunch, final one of the semester before we take a summer break, and we'll bring you back here in the, I guess, late summer as we head into fall camp and the 2019 Texas A&M football season. During that time, Billy, the university will be looking for an athletic director, R.C. Slocum, in the interim title. Had a little bit of news, kind of news break on that front on Thursday with the Oregon athletic director. Remind me of his name.
Bullard.
Yeah, he was getting
Mullen.
Mullen.
I said Bullard.
Mullen was going to get
Brady
a
Bullard
look.
over.
You don't have to reveal any behind-the-scenes info, but just any update on the timetable. You think by the time we come back, they'll have a
Yeah, I do, but I think that I don't know who I said this to or who I wrote. It all runs together, but they're pushing hard. This is not a hey, let's take our time. I mean, they're not going to rush into a bad decision, but they are pushing hard to get a guy hired as quickly as they can. This is not a let's just wait. RC's fine. Let's wait and let things play out. Like everybody, and R.C. Slocum has obviously had a lot more important things on his plate, and I think everyone here, myself, everyone listening, Aggies everywhere, have been praying for him and his family, and especially for John Harvey, and we've gotten some amazing news on that front over the last few days. So it's been, if you follow them on Facebook, I would recommend it. If you're wondering what's going on with John Harvey, it's been, I was worried when I first heard it. It just didn't. It just, people were talking about it. Just felt ominous, and you're going, gosh, are we going to lose him? It's someone I've known for a long time, like 20 plus years, and consider a friend. So, and everyone's thoughts and prayers were with RC and Nell and Sean and their whole family, but especially John Harvey and his family. But that's been, I thank God for the literally praise the Lord for the news we've been hearing out of Midland. But before any of that happened, R.C. Slocum has been, everybody up there is like he's the first one there in the morning, and he's all in on the interim job.
You can 100% see that coming.
This is not like, hey, I'm just going to do it because you guys need. I mean, he's in there trying to learn and work and learn the ropes and be supportive and be a leader, be the coach, But that doesn't change the fact of the search process to go and get the permanent guy. It's no offense to the work RC's doing and can do. They're literally, though, I think they are pushing hard to get that thing resolved right away for the long term. Because I think what you don't want it to do is drag into the fall. I think because Jimbo Fisher is going, his input.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Is going to weigh heavy in this
Michael
search.
Young and Jimbo.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, look, but it's Michael Young's search. It's his job. Jimbo's opinion is going to weigh heavily because Michael Young knows that he's smart enough to know that this is the guy I'm going to consult with. The honest thing. And I think it needs to be that way. But now, I don't want my head football coach having to worry about this crap going on into fall camp and football, especially football season, because he won't. He won't. Football is going to come first and foremost. And so then what happens? So I do think, you need to get this thing wrapped up in a not today, but in a pretty expeditious fashion.
Is there any kind of quality you'd like to see in this next AD? Just personally, like, hey, it would be really fired up if this guy had done this.
I do. I think more so even than a head coach. I think SEC experience matters on the AD side. I want it in my head coach and my assistant coaches, but I think it's particularly important on the AD side. This is a unique league. It's the best league, and it's the power in college athletics. But it's unique in some ways. We're an AD with experience and an AD that knows Greg Sankey and is familiar with the rules and regulations and the competitive side of it and all that. I think somebody in that regard, I'd like to see them have some semblance of SEC experience. It doesn't have to be as the AD. Maybe you're a deputy AD in the SEC. You look at the guy Mullins that they're talking about, and he was at Kentucky under Barnhart. So I said he was at Kentucky there for a while. So I want to see it just like Scott Woodward when he came. Yeah, he came from UW. He was an AD at UW. He wasn't an AD at LSU, but he had a lot of experience in athletics at LSU. So I do think that's important. And I'd like to see it be a guy that is football, that football friendly, and that he's going to be there to fight for Jimbo Fisher and football when the battles need to be fought, whether it be with the university or within the league or whatever that may be. He's going to be there to fight for football when those battles need to be fought.
Do you think it's tougher because he'll be walking into a situation where, like some of these winter and spring sports, he's walking in a great situation in football and in men's basketball, but you've got Gary Blair who's been here a long time. What does his tenure look like? Rob Childress been here a long time. Joe Evans been here a long time. There may be some coaches, whether through one reason or another, are done with their career soon. I mean, those are some big shoes to fill. Gary Blair's got a national championship and multiple Sweet 16s.
Yeah.
Rob Childress and Joe Evans have both been to College World Series. I mean, those. I'm not saying that they're ready to end their careers. I'm just saying when they've been here this long and they're getting older, they may be looking to be done soon.
Or it might be the other way around.
What do you mean?
They might not be looking to be done soon. You might be looking for them to be done. I'm just saying any coach that there's not easy decisions to come in for an AD anywhere. How many sports do you have? You're always going to have coaches that might be seeing the end of the line and decide they want to step down and retire. There are underperforming coaches. There are coaches that abruptly leave for another job. So just because football and basketball are stabilized in terms of just new coaches. First of all, it's not as if those sports don't have their own challenges within there. It's just like, let's say Jimbo Fisher would have lost. Here's a football thing, right? Jimbo Fisher's in his first year. You're not losing Jimbo to go anywhere. It's $7.5 million a year guaranteed for 10 years. And by the way, for those wondering, I still don't think that's an issue or a risk. But this year, you almost lost Mike Elko to Temple. And when Jimbo Fisher said, we got to keep him, we can't lose him after 1 year, your AD steps up and gets approval from the people he needs to get it from to say, okay, we're going to bump Mike Elko up to 2.1 a year. And you were able to keep him from Temple. Let's say he or another coach does leave. They were able to give Jay Graham a raise on a moment's notice when they needed to, when his alma mater came after him in Tennessee. That's because you have a football-friendly AD. That's what I'm talking about, that will go fight for you. So if you lose a coach or let's say Elko were to get a head job then a year from now or several months from now. So if Jimbo Fisher goes in and says, I have to get a coach of his caliber minimum, and now it's going to cost more to pull a coach from his caliber.
Sure.
Like, in other words, here's this guy, whoever it may be. I can get him, but it's going to cost us a little more now. You need the AD to understand the importance of that big picture and say, okay, let's get this done. We've got to get this done. You're right. I understand why. Not everybody's like that. Some of them are going to look at the numbers and be like, well, our assistant coach's pool is it, get it done. And so I think that's a trait I want to see in the football.
On the other side of the break, we'll flip it to the football team and some of your questions from here at the tap. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch live on the Zone. Welcome back. 1237 here in Bryan College Station, Texas, at the Tap on Harvey Road. Don't forget, out here tonight, karaoke, Wednesday nights, piano bar going on all through the summer. For more information, check out their website, tapbcs.com. They've always got some great up-and-coming Texas music artists. Had a great lineup here yesterday for Cinco de Mayo, both inside and outside. Saw some pictures and video from there. Looked like a great time. So there's always something going on here at the Tap. Liucci, we're getting some questions from the folks in the Tap.
Let's hit them.
But I'm going to save them for the last segment, but they kind of hit on team stuff. And let me give you some names for over the summer. And you hit on some of these guys in your big question thread this weekend on TexAgs. And they're mostly going to have to do with injuries. And then one is a freshman. So let's start at linebacker. Ikena Okeke and Anthony Hines. Expect them to be 100% come fall camp. And then how does Ikena find his way into that rotation? Because he was a guy before he got hurt was finding his way around the football quite a bit.
Yeah, he had a nice was it the spring game last year, I think?
Yeah.
I saw him. I actually ran into him maybe this past weekend. He's definitely filling out and looking more like an SEC linebacker than he is a safety. You know, I think he's grown past that where you no longer – like if he walked in here right now, you say, oh, that guy plays college football. He looks like a linebacker, you know. And that's part of that transformation for those spin-down guys. You want to see them – you know, some people would say, like, you know, there was a point in time where I thought Larry Pryor might spin down and be, but if they walked in here and you go, oh, that guy's the linebacker, and be, oh, I can't. But they should be good to go fall camp, and we were talking to somebody the other day, and it was after Tyrell didn't get drafted, and it's like, gosh, what a blow that was, because that's one of the two. They a lot of times they're gonna have two linebackers on the field. That's one of the two spots. Everybody else could have battled it out for the other one. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted three, you would have felt pretty good about Dodson, Hines, and Buddy. Now you don't have that luxury of having that senior that's played a ton of football. It's wide open. I think Ikena will factor in prominently when it's all said and done. I think Andre White will too.
What a great segue.
I think Braden White will. And then Anthony Hines and Buddy Johnson. And if anyone else were to insert themselves into that mix, my pick is Chris Russell. I think he's one that
often forgot about.
I really wish he would have been able to be an early enrollee, because I think he's a real player, but I just don't know if getting here, you know, and just starting off with the pads on in fall camp is enough time for him to be instantly, you know, passing some of those guys that we mentioned.
All right, offensive side, Grayson Reed and Caleb Chapman, just health report. And then you've been mentioning Grayson Reed quite a bit, so I'm sure you've been hearing some good things on him on the interior offensive line.
No, I haven't heard bad things, but that's not why. I think if he's healthy, he can factor in. And I haven't heard a bunch about him because he hasn't been out there. But before he was hurt, his name always came up, not as like that top-tier guy that was about to, you know, have a breakthrough. There's a crowd there on the inside. It's just that no one is right there at the very top of it. I mean, with Hawker, you go Hawker, McCollum, Matthews, Tank, Prater as a senior, and then you know, throw in Grayson Reed, and then you're going to insert Kenyon Green into that mix. Just name like 7 guys that are possibilities. Certainly no fewer than a half dozen. But it is for 3 spots now, you know, and I know you return Hawker and McCollum have that starting experience, so you could really say, well, there's 1 open spot, but there really are 3. There really are 3, and I think the odds heavily favor McCollum and Hawker being 2 of those 3 to start, but that's not a guarantee.
Was the biggest surprise for you this spring that Ryan McCollum won the offensive MVP?
Yeah, if you before the spring, he would not have been
top
If
10.
you would have said name your candidates for most improved on offense pre-spring, he would have been in my top 3. If you say MVP of the offense during the spring, I would not have wagered. I would not have hazarded a guess of Ryan McCollum. I can promise you that. And it's not – I just probably would have gone a skill guy. Mm-hmm. And if I would have gone O-line, I might have gone like a Dan Moore or Carson Green. So I'm really – I mean, Ryan McCollum's development was a huge storyline this spring too. For him to be able to do that, if he can back that up with a fall camp and stabilize one of those 3 positions inside – I mean, you talk about a really significant spring development. That's one of them.
It has to bode well. I mean, to replace Eric McCoy, I think that might have been the biggest storyline of the spring was the rise of Ryan McCollum. And then at Chapman, I just think the receiver position is hard for some of these underclass guys because they don't run a bunch of 5-wide stuff. They don't rotate as much as the last offense, and then you've got 3 guys coming back that you feel pretty good about.
Yeah, but I think Caleb Chapman, I predict he will force his way in there in some capacity. Those guys should still feel the pressure.
Sure, they should.
From him, if he's out there practicing and fully healthy in the fall, he's going to put some pressure on some guys. He's that good.
It isn't like Kendrick Rogers was maybe that pushes him to be more consistent.
Oh, I think so. And I think Kendrick is mentally there where he needs to be. He's a mature, older guy now that's got a lot of confidence. But if Caleb would have been healthy last year when Kendrick kind of, fought injuries from game like 3 to game 10, and then when Jamon went out and missed about, 5 games in there, I think Caleb Chapman would have made it real tough for anyone to get him off the field.
It's interesting because we always talk about the next step for Kendrick is consistency, but what about Courtney and Jamon? What do you think the next step is for them heading into their
I think for Courtney, he can take a step into being kind of one of the SEC's top playmakers at wide receiver. I think he's that good. I think he is an impact, exciting, flashy, big play wide receiver. I've said it before. I won't go down the whole list, but you go in your head and go through the list of big plays against good teams. He had just SEC and Clemson. There's a lot of them. So I think if he can take that next step and do an SEC, like a all SEC type receiver. I think
more of a household name in the conference.
Yeah, and I think Jamon, I think for Jamon the next step is to be like, why can't he be the leading pass catcher on the team? Maybe he doesn't quite have the yards that a Courtney does, and maybe he doesn't have the touchdowns that a Kendrick could if they start throwing him in the red zone. But a chain mover and Kellen Mond's go-to target, because he doesn't have one. Jay Sternberger was his go-to.
Yeah, why can't Jamon replicate what Jace did?
Well, yeah, he can, but I don't think he's going to. But he could. I mean, he could go 50-something catches for 800 yards this season. Mm-hmm. I don't know about the 10 touchdowns. I think that's going to be more of a by committee. But he could be the go-to guy for Kellen. I mean, look, Kellen's going to have some real weapons now. Let's not forget, he returns his top 3 receivers. He loses his tight end, but he's going to have Baylor Cupp, who's just going to be a just massive target in the middle of the field. He's going to have Jalen Wydermyer and Glenn Beal, another giant target, with Wydermyer and Cupp being maybe a little more dynamic.
Wydermyer reminds me so much of Ricky Seals-Jones, man.
You
go back and watch his high school tape.
I think he's a little more fluid. Size, how they catch the ball.
If Ricky had been a tight end coming out of high school, I think they're rated and all that comes very serious, like similarly.
I would agree with that. And then don't forget what he's going to have. If there's one thing, there's 2 things that I feel about Jashawn Corbin that are better than what Travion Williams did. And I've stated before, Travion had the best final, like a 5-game stretch of anything I've ever seen from an A&M football player. Von Miller's Von Miller's senior year was up there for me. Johnny Manziel, many times did it. Mike Evans did it many times. I mean, man, that's almost about it in terms of
I'm
Dat
sure,
win.
yeah.
Dat win senior year. And really, Dat's whole career, obviously, but his senior year where he just
Tackled everything.
spectacular week. But Travion was on that short list. But if there's two things, though, that Corbin does do better even already, he's certainly got a lot more breakaway speed, and he's scary when he touches the ball. But I also think as a pass catcher, he's a lot better. He is a gifted weapon as a pass catcher out of the backfield. So I think between having him, you don't have Jace, but you're upgrading out of the backfield catching the ball. You've got tight ends to work with, and you've got all your receivers back plus a couple of additions. Kellen has as much as you could ask for as a quarterback. If he can get the blocking he needs. Mm-hmm. The good news is he's got two tackles that are returning starters and got better and better. That's a good starting off point.
On the other side of the break, we'll close this final show of the semester with your questions from here at the Tech. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch live on the Zone. Got about 6 minutes left before we kick it back to Louis Bellina for the final time this semester. Ron Brauninger and Beliucci with you from here on the stage at the Tap on Harvey Road, and we've got questions, Luch, and quite a bit of them. So I don't know if you want to pay an homage to the front table before we sign off for the summer, but they did invite us every Monday and Thursday to come have lunch with them if we get lonely. I said, I hope I'm never that lonely.
God,
we're both single.
I might come in here. Yeah, we're single. We're single. You know, I eat lunch with dudes every day, like every weekday. When the day comes that I have a girls' lunch, I wouldn't complain about it, but in this town right now,
you're going to volunteer
it doesn't
yourself
happen.
to eat with
I eat lunch with the guys.
Tipton and Asher. I mean,
I didn't say I eat lunch with those guys. I said I eat lunch with the guys. I'm going to tell you what, Bronny, Asher would come over here and kick your ass. I got no doubt about it.
I think I'd see him coming.
You'd see him coming. You might not see that left coming. You'd hear him coming for sure.
He wouldn't hear me running away from me here in this segment.
He'd come over here and knock you out and go, I'll say. Foghorn, leghorn you.
Questions from here at the tab. When does the state 7-on-7 tournament come to Veterans Park and College Station? That is on June 27th through the 29th.
Knowing my guys, they'll probably schedule vacations around that time.
No, I'll be there, and it's one of the hottest 3 days ever. You got there all day, and you come back all rosado between, down there. You got a rubber rash down there.
What the hell did you need to stop talking. Go take a break.
We are about to take a
That was the most repulsive thing I've heard on this show in a long time.
Who's the number 2
and there's been a lot.
Who's the number 2 quarterback, number 2 running back, and is the Oregon AD the lead prospect?
We already talked about the AD stuff. I don't think there's a lead prospect. I think there's a lead prospect will emerge at some point here, probably pretty soon, like I said. Number 2 quarterback. I still think it's going to be one of those younger guys between Foster and Calzada. I really like the way Calzada kind of was surging. But if you go back and look at Foster from the end of last year to spring, you see a guy that really has improved a lot as well. That'll go on. Running back, man, that's a really tough question to answer because of the finish that Cabote had in their last couple of scrimmages, because Isaiah Spiller, I think, is really talented, and he's not on campus yet. Deneric Prince. But I'm still going to go. I still think Cordarian Richardson is – nobody knows about this dude. He can play, man. I think he's going to be a game guy, too. I think he's going to come with a level of like physicality that really plays well in this league and in this offense.
What position group do you see taking the biggest step forward into the fall or in the fall? In the fall.
Position group take the biggest step forward this fall. I might go with the defensive backfield because I just think, and especially as the season goes on, because I think they were really bad last year. But they were in position to make plays. We talked about that all year. And I think quietly in the last 5 games or so, they made strides. And I got into a huge debate with somebody about that. And
was it Hunter?
No, it wasn't. They hit me with a lot of stats that made me question that, second guess it. But I watched the games, and they were better against Auburn up until the last 2 drives. They were better against Ole Miss because the plays Ole Miss made, like 150 of those yards came off insane catches, and they held them to, 2 touchdowns the whole game, that Ole Miss offense with Teamu and those receivers. UAB to me was actually the bad one, but they didn't give up a lot of points, but they were getting shredded early on. And that's when that was without Miles. Remember in the first half you didn't have Miles Jones because he got thrown out for a really bad targeting late against Ole Miss in the final minute. So then Oliver got torched, and then the second half it didn't go that way. LSU, Burrow didn't get them throwing the ball. He did it running. Yep. And in the bowl game, they did a terrific job without Donovan Wilson, with Leon O'Neal in there against their quarterback that we heard so much about throughout the bowl prep. So I think they finished not anything to like brag about or write home about, but a noticeable improvement. And you bring all those guys back, and you're essentially adding Clifford Chapman and 4 newcomers, including a junior college guy that's going to be a little more ready-made than high school guys. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity there at the position.
Liucci, it was a fun spring. We'll see you after the summer.
Oh, well, recruiting and
Summer vacay.
man, it's going to be football season coming up right around the corner.
Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. We'll see you back this fall. Ron Brauninger, Billy Liucci from the Beliucci Hour Lunch. Louie's on the other side.